CEO pretends to be deaf. What he overhears from his employees is unforgivable. The room fell silent as Jonathan Reed stepped out of the elevator. Or at least, that's what they assumed. He wore hearing aids in both ears, large enough to be noticed, and moved with the slow calculation of a man who struggled to follow conversations. The team at the Midtown branch of Oxentech gave him a polite, distant welcome. They didn't know who he really was. And that was exactly how he planned it. Jonathan was a founder and CEO of Oxentech, a billion-dollar tech firm, revered for its speech recognition software and AI voice integration. Ironically, his choice to go undercover as a deaf temp worker was born from the very technology that made him rich. One sleepless night, he was reviewing support tickets when he came across a flagged customer complaint, a transcript captured by one of their live testing programs. It wasn't from a customer. It was internal. And what it described wasn't a bug. It was a warning. The old man upstairs thinks he knows everything. He has no idea we're flipping vendor contracts. Let him keep playing philanthropist. He traced the voice to a field office. Then another. The deeper he looked, the more he saw. Patterns of internal fraud, abuse of power, morale spiraling. But the paper trail stopped cold at Midtown. So he made a decision. He would go in, not as Jonathan Reed, but as John R., a deaf facilities assistant on special assignment. They underestimated him immediately, thought he was just another temp placed by HR. Even HR didn't know his real identity. Only one person did, his former executive assistant, now head of special projects, named Elise. She had helped orchestrate the backstory. Medical files. A work profile that said he was a retired warehouse clerk seeking part-time work after a stroke. For the first week, he played the role well, nodded politely, avoided making eye contact, used a small notepad to communicate when necessary. And he listened, not just with his ears, with his eyes, with his instincts. People said things around him they wouldn't dare utter around a manager. He watched his employees skip breaks to hit unrealistic targets, saw junior analysts run errands for department heads that had nothing to do with work. But it wasn't until he began cleaning the executive lounge that he heard the worst of it. The lounge was restricted, but his ID badge had been coded to grant access. No one looked twice when he came in with a mop and headphones. And that's where he met them, Colin, the branch director, and Meredith, the VP of sales. "You seen the new guy?" Colin said, sipping from a Golden Boss mug. "The deaf one. It's actually kind of useful. He doesn't talk, doesn't ask questions. Wish we could get a few more like him." Meredith laughed. "HR sent him, right? Probably another of Elise's charity projects. She's been on this diversity kick lately." "Well, as long as he doesn't hear what we're cooking with the Kantara account, we're fine. Speaking of, we need to move those funds before quarter close." Jonathan froze. Kantara was one of their oldest partners. Any fund movements not logged through the main system would be illegal. And more than that, they were using his name to authorize them. Over the next few days, Jonathan followed them without following them. When Colin wasn't around, Meredith ran the floor like a tyrant. People moved out of her way. The developers whispered about fake productivity reports. The warehouse team muttered about missing bonuses. He began collecting evidence. Using the company's own software embedded in his disguised hearing aids, he recorded conversations, encrypted and streamed through Elisa's private channel. It was on a Friday afternoon that everything began to unravel. Meredith stormed out of her office, barking at an intern named Ben. Something about a misfiled client report. Jonathan had seen Ben. Young, smart, nervous. "If I see one more mistake," she hissed, "you can go back to your coffee-fetching job. Maybe you'll be better at serving than thinking." Jonathan followed Ben as he slipped into the back stairwell, shoulders hunched. When he caught up, he tapped him gently and handed over a sticky note that simply read, "You okay?" Ben stared, startled, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's nothing." Jonathan scribbled, "I'm not who you think I am, but I want to help. If something's wrong, tell me." Ben hesitated. Then he said 4 words that cracked everything open. "Check the incentive fund." That night, Elise cross-referenced account logs. A shadow budget existed under an outdated project number. Millions rerouted as performance bonuses, but not to the team, to Colin, to Meredith, to a few others. It wasn't just fraud. It was embezzlement. Jonathan planned to return Monday with legal in tow. But the next morning before dawn, he received a text from an anonymous number. "We know who you are. Turn around." Attached was a photo of him and Elise, taken just the day before. He didn't tell Elise. Not yet. He needed time. He showed up to work, played his role. But this time, no one met his eyes. Not Ben, not the front desk clerk. Meredith was gone. Colin was in his office with the door locked. Something had shifted. By noon, his badge stopped working. Security approached. "Sorry, sir, we need to verify your placement with HR." He played along, texted Elise, pulled a ripcord. What followed was a storm. Elise arrived with lawyers. Jonathan removed the hearing aids. And within an hour, every director in the building was summoned to the executive floor. He stood at the head of the table. "No disguise, just truth. I built this company to elevate people," he began, "not to step on them." He laid out the findings, the recordings, the forged logs. Meredith had already fled the state. Colin tried to deny it until Elise played a clip of him authorizing the shell accounts. Terminations followed. Criminal charges were filed. But even as the dust settled, something haunted Jonathan. In one of the recordings, buried beneath laughter and arrogance, he heard another voice, unfamiliar. "Phase 2 starts next quarter. Once Reed is out, we flip the real contract. They'll never trace it." He played it back, slowed it down, enhanced it, and what he heard chilled him. It was a voice he hadn't heard in years. His former co-founder, the man who had disappeared after falling out years ago during Vox and Tekka's early days. The man who had once called him brother. The screen faded to black, and the only sound left was Jonathan's voice whispering. He never left. He's been here the whole time. The sound of the recording still echoed in his mind as he stared out the window of his office, the city stretched below him glinting under the afternoon sun. But the glass that once symbolized transparency now felt more like a wall of barrier between what he believed about his company and what he had just discovered. Cole Langford wasn't just disappointed. He was gutted. The voices of his employees, those cruel mocking tones, they hadn't just been gossip, they had been admissions of sabotage, cruelty. Even theft, all because they believed he couldn't hear them. He thought pretending to be deaf would reveal small cracks in the foundation. He never expected to find rot buried so deep. Cole spent the weekend combing through every piece of footage, every note, every whispered conversation captured by the discreet recording device sewn into his jacket collar. He had expected occasional complaints, minor frustrations, maybe even a moment of insensitivity. But not project managers laughing about misreporting vendor contracts, not HR assistants joking about manipulating payroll, not senior staff mocking disabled interns to their faces. It was worse than betrayal. It was a cancer, growing in silence while he focused on expanding. Cole had trusted his team to uphold the culture he had built. Instead, they had weaponized his absence. Monday morning, Cole didn't arrive at the office in his usual car. He walked in from the street in a hoodie and jeans, head down, earphones and eyes masked with sunglasses. He didn't speak. He didn't make eye contact, just rode the elevator with the rest of them. No one noticed him, not really, just the way they hadn't noticed the new janitor last week or the delivery guy who came through reception Friday afternoon. They spoke freely as if the building itself were deaf too. He's clueless, just keeps smiling and nodding like some dumb statue. "Did you see how we logged double hours on that file? And no one checked it? Guy probably thinks we're heroes. It's his own fault if he's too soft to lead." Cole didn't flinch. He just listened. His silence was his weapon now, and with every cruel laugh, every confession, he added another line to the spreadsheet Jasmine had helped him build, a list of names, departments, patterns. This wasn't just about gossip. This was a map, a blueprint of dysfunction. By Wednesday, Cole called his assistant Karen into his office, the only person he still trusted, without hesitation. He handed her a folder. Her eyes widened as she flipped through it. "Cole, this is... How long have you known?" "Long enough," he said quietly. "I need you to call a company-wide staff meeting for Friday afternoon, mandatory. Everyone in the main atrium." She nodded, her lips pressed into a tight line. What should I tell them it's about? Just say it's important and that the CEO has something to say for the first time in a while. He paused. And Karen brings security in early that day, quietly. Friday arrived with tension, so thick it felt like fog. Employees murmured in clumps, whispers echoing through corridors. Why now? What was this about? It something happened. Most of them hadn't seen Cole in weeks, not since a supposed health scare that left them temporarily unable to speak or hear. And the truth was some of them had enjoyed the freedom. Cole stepped onto the stage at exactly 2 p.m. The atrium lights dimmed slightly, the floor-to-ceiling windows casting shadows across the polished concrete floors. He looked out over the sea of faces, some anxious, some smug, others completely unaware. Then he spoke, clearly, firmly, and without aid. Good afternoon. I want to begin by saying thank you for being here. And for those who are wondering, yes, I can hear you now and always have. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few people visibly stiffened. One or two paled, others laughed nervously. 2 weeks ago, I returned to this building under a different name, wearing different clothes, pretending to have different abilities. I did this because something inside me felt wrong, like I was losing touch with what we had built here and what I found. He paused, pulled a remote from his pocket, and clicked the screen behind him, flickered on audio, began to play short clips taken from various days, voices, overlapped insults, mocking tones, laughter, cruel jokes, a manager admitting to altering records, a team lead ridiculing an employee on medical leave. Gasps filled the room. One woman burst into tears. Another walked out. Cole let it play for 30 seconds, then clicked it off. Silence fell. I wanted to believe we were better than this, that we were the company we claimed to be, but some of you have turned this place into a fortress of fear instead of a foundation of trust. So today, we start fixing it. He motioned to the side. Security stepped forward, quietly handing sealed envelopes to select employees, those on a spreadsheet, those whose voices had filled the recordings. These are notices of suspension pending investigation for every person whose conduct violated our core ethics policy. And for those who enable them with silence, you'll be under review as well. Someone shouted, "You can't do this, we were just venting." Cole turned to him. Venting doesn't involve theft, harassment, or fraud. If you don't know the difference, you shouldn't be here. He continued, "We will be rebuilding from the inside out, starting with an anonymous audit of every department and restructuring management oversight effective. Immediately, our new director of culture and accountability will oversee this. Her name is Amber Drayton, and she starts today." A woman in a red blazer stepped onto the stage, sharp-eyed, holding a thick binder in one hand and a tablet in the other. "I didn't come here to shame you," Cole said, his voice lowering. "I came here to remind you of who we said we were, and to give us a chance to be that again." He scanned the crowd. "Some of you will never return after today, and that's a consequence, not a punishment for the rest of you. This is your chance to choose better." The meeting ended in stunned silence. People shuffled out, some crying, some furious, some strangely relieved. In the days that followed, the company buzzed with cautious energy. Teams reorganized. Cole walked the halls daily, speaking directly to staff, asking questions, learning names again. Amber set up roundtable discussions where employees shared their stories openly for the first time in years. Real transparency, not just corporate jargon. But late one night, as Cole reviewed a batch of anonymous feedback, forms of message slipped in without a name or department, just 4 words printed in bold type. "You missed one, Cole." Beneath it, a photo, grainy dark, a storage room, a hand, exchanging a bag of cash with another figure mostly obscured, but wearing a company badge. Cole stared at the image, his stomach turning. He zoomed in on the timestamp. The date was last week after suspensions, after the audit had begun. This wasn't over, not even close. He picked up his phone and called Amber. "We need to talk," he said, "now. If this story moved you, imagine how many more are still hidden. What would you do if you uncovered a truth no one believed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist from Beyond True Crime. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, share this video. Truth travels faster when we tell it together.